Good evening, and welcome to tonight's talk show. We have a lot of interesting topics to talk about that I hope you all find fascinating and can even relate to them on a personal level. Many of these topics will be geared toward getting you to think about how they impact your lives on a daily basis.
Thank you for joining us on Plant Biology today. My name is Diana Villagran.
And I'm Mitch Rosinski. We will be your host for the evening. Today we'll be talking about the misconceptions many individuals have with regards to GMOs, and we would like to provide some insight not only from well-known scientists, but also concerned parents who can be uneducated about these sorts of things. If you do not know what GMOs are, then you are in for a surprise as to how important they can be for the production of food. That will further be discussed by some of our special guests we have on tonight's show.
Our goal for this show is to be able to provide people with clear explanations on the topic and clarify what kinds of impacts GMOs have on us. So today on the show, we have a couple of well-known scientists, Anthony Barish and Hunter Paul. Mr. Barish, could you give us a little more detail on what GMOs exactly are?
First off, I would like to thank you for having me. With that being said, I think it would be appropriate to start off with the definition of what a GMO actually is. It is important to know what a GMO is before we talk about it. A GMO is a genetically modified organism. It is the result of a laboratory process where genes from the DNA of one species are extracted and artificially implanted into the genes of an unrelated plant, animal, or microorganisms like bacteria. Genetic modification allows plants to deter predators like insects, grow in environments that would originally be too harsh for them, grow much more quickly along with bigger yields, and for food crops, genetic modification allows them to grow better tasting and looking food that also lasts longer.
Now that we have a good understanding of what GMOs are provided by Mr. Barish, let's introduce our other special guests joining us today on the show, Stacy and Andrew. These are locals who both requested to be on tonight's show to express some of their concerns.
Can one of you provide an explanation as to why you may have concerns about GMOs? What aspects of GMOs make you skeptical about the authenticity of the crop, if there is any that you have?
First off, I would like to thank everyone for having me. As a consumer of food products, I do have a level of concern as to what makes up the food that I eat and if these modified organisms have health impacts on my family and, less importantly, me. I am not well educated on this topic, but I always worry about what I am buying at my local grocery store and how it negatively affects me and my family. I fear that these modifications could cause problems because they are taking away from the natural components of a plant.
I completely agree with Andrew. That is because as a parent you want to make sure that the food you are buying and preparing for your children is healthy to consume. I would also like to add that since there are modifications involved, we as consumers need to know what we are consuming on a daily basis. However, the research is either insufficient or hardly accessible to the public. This lack of communication sparks my doubt and confusion.
I believe both Mr. Andrew and Ms. Stacy make valid points. I am sure there are other concerned parents, and it would be reasonable to ask someone with greater understanding of GMOs. So today on the show, we also have Mr. Paul, who is a well-known scientist in the field of GMOs. Mr. Paul, what do you have to say in regards to their concerns?
Yeah, thank you for having me today. That's a very good question that many people have. You should have no concern, however, since the FDA has passed GMOs as safe for consumption first and foremost. But if you need any more reassurance, some studies were done on rats and their diets. So 2 groups of rats were given different diets, one GMO and one non-GMO. The rats were fed nearly 7,000 times more GMO or non-GMO food than a human would normally eat, and still no harmful effects were found. There were no mutations of the DNA, no fertility defects, no effects on the offspring or nothing.
It is reassuring to know now that there are ongoing studies being done comparing the use of GMOs to non-GMOs and that no harmful effects were found.
Okay, it is relieving to know that the food I am giving to my children has been tested as a safe product. I only worry because of what I know. Humans haven't been eating GMOs long enough to see a side effect. Also because my family is the most important thing to me and my ultimate job is to protect them. Do you mind if I ask Dr. Paul or Dr. Barash a question?
Of course you can. That's why they're here, to answer any question that you may have.
I'm listening.
And so am I.
What are some of the benefits of genetically modifying these organisms, specifically the crops we grow for food consumption?
Well, like I said before, it essentially allows for plants to be able to survive in a specific environment while yielding a large quantity. Because of this, more people have been able to eat plentiful amounts of food at a cheaper cost. In addition to this benefit, the genetic modification of plants has allowed foods to be harvested at a constant and ever-growing rate, which means that famines could potentially be a thing of the past.
Also, with GMOs, you don't need to add any more substances to the crop, such as pesticides to protect against insects and herbicides to get rid of any unwanted vegetation. That's because modifying these organisms can make them resistant to certain things. You can also notice a decrease in maintenance and farming methods with GMOs. They also allow for more crops to go on a smaller piece of land. As mentioned earlier, these crops are engineered to fight diseases and viruses, so we can continue to grow them in higher quantities. GMOs also help your food not to go to waste. So, for example, after cutting an apple, GMOs help the apple stay fresher for longer periods of time before it starts to turn brown.
Wow, I can't believe how much science affects our everyday lives and normal society. I had no idea.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's astonishing.
It is truly amazing how much GMOs have helped the world, and it is the duty of everyone to stand up against ignorance. Science paves the way of human progress, and in the words of the famous Dr. Edward Teller, the science of today is the technology of tomorrow.
So that concludes the show for today. I hope you all have a greater understanding of what GMOs are and how they can contribute to society.
Thank you all for listening and have a wonderful evening.